Welcome to Sci-Fi Realm. Before we begin, hit subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Professor Yvette stood at the center of the Galactic Extinction Review Council chamber, her worn leather notebook clutched in both hands like a shield. The circular room stretched upward into shadows, with council members arranged in ascending tiers that made her feel like a specimen under cosmic scrutiny. She'd been invited to present Earth's geological history as part of an academic exchange program. What she hadn't expected was the absolute horror on every alien face the moment she started listing events. So to summarize, Yvette continued, flipping through pages covered in hasty annotations, Earth has experienced multiple mass extinction events throughout its history. The Ordovician extinction, the Devonian crisis, the Permian catastrophe, the Triassic boundary event, and of course, the Cretaceous impact that ended the dinosaurs. She looked up with what she hoped was an encouraging smile. Humans are remarkably good at surviving these sorts of things. The lead counselor, a towering figure named Grenda, with crystalline skin that refracted light into unsettling patterns, leaned forward in his seat. His voice rumbled like tectonic plates grinding together. Professor Yvette, perhaps I misunderstood your preliminary report. When you documented these extinction events, you were referring to historical occurrences from your planet's distant past. Correct. Well, yes, mostly, Yvette said, adjusting her glasses. Though I should mention that we are currently experiencing what many scientists consider the Holocene extinction, which is ongoing and ongoing. A counselor from the back row shrieked. The creature resembled a floating jellyfish, wrapped in academic robes. You mean to tell us that your species is currently living through an extinction-level event? I mean, we're causing it technically, Yvette said, flipping to a page with various charts. Habitat destruction, climate change, pollution, the usual suspects. But we're very adaptable, so it's more of a long-term concern than an immediate. Greeno raised one massive hand, silencing the growing murmur of panic spreading through the chamber. I need absolute clarity on this matter, Professor. When we asked for a comprehensive accounting of extinction events affecting your planet, we expected historical data, archived information, events that have concluded. His eyes, which glowed with an inner luminescence, fixed on her with uncomfortable intensity. Are you telling us that Earth is experiencing active extinction pressures at this very moment? Yvette opened her mouth to respond, then paused. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through her calendar with a frown. Define moment. Because if you mean this specific week, then we've got the ongoing biodiversity collapse. The microplastic situation just hit critical levels. According to the report I read on Thursday, and there's that whole supervolcano thing that keeps making scientists nervous. She looked up brightly. But if you mean historically across geological timescales, then obviously we're talking about the big events I already mentioned. The chamber erupted into chaos. Counselors began shouting in languages that made Yvette's translator implant buzz with conflicting interpretations. Several delegates stood up so quickly, their chairs toppled backward. Grena was attempting to restore order by slamming what appeared to be a ceremonial gavel against his podium. But the sound was lost in the cacophony. A blob-like creature near the front. Yvette's notes identified him as Qualix. The official council translator began making distressed gurgling sounds. His gelatinous form rippled with what could only be described as linguistic distress. Impossible translation matrix. Quix moaned, his voice bubbling through the universal communication system. The human uses extinction terminology for non-extinction scenarios. My processors cannot reconcile this paradox. I'm sorry. What? Yvette stepped closer to the translator's platform. I'm being pretty straightforward here. We call bad situations extinctions now. It's just how we talk. Quix's entire body shuddered. But extinction is a specific terminological designation for species-wide cessation events. You cannot apply it to casual circumstances. Oh, we absolutely can, Yvette said cheerfully. My dating life. Extinction-level disaster. My department's budget after the last round of cuts. Total extinction event. The cafeteria running out of the good sandwiches. Might as well be an asteroid impact. She shrugged. It's called hyperbole. We use it for emphasis. A counselor who resembled a praying mantis, crossed with a library catalog system, stood up, her antenna quivering with indignation. This is an outrage. She mocks the sacred duty of this council. Extinction assessment is a solemn responsibility, not a linguistic toy for primitive species. Hey now, Iete said, her friendly tone gaining an edge. I wouldn't call humans primitive. We've survived plenty of genuine catastrophes, which is more than I can say for some species. She gestured at an empty seat marked with a memorial placard. The Zorathians wiped themselves out, arguing about proper comma usage. At least, we're still here to be hyperbolic about it. Grenar's crystalline skin flashed an angry red. You will show respect for the lost professor. The Zorathians were a noble civilization whose dedication to linguistic precision was admirable, even if ultimately fatal. He paused. That aside, your cavalier attitude toward extinction terminology is deeply concerning. Perhaps you fail to understand the gravity of what this council oversees. I understand perfectly, Yvette said, crossing her arms. You monitor extinction events across the galaxy, assess risks, and presumably help species avoid the same fate as the Zorathians. It's an important job, but maybe your species don't face enough existential threats to develop a sense of humor about them. We do, so we joke. Joke? Qual whispered, his form deflating slightly. You joke about extinction? What else are we supposed to do? Yvette asked. Spend every moment terrified. We've got meteor impacts, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, plagues, climate shifts, and about a dozen different ways we're accidentally destroying ourselves. If we didn't laugh, we'd never stop screaming. The chamber fell silent. Counselors exchanged glances that Yvette couldn't quite interpret. Greener's glow dimmed to a contemplative amber. He was about to speak when a shrill alarm pierced the air. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in pulsing blue. A holographic display materialized above the center podium, showing scrolling text in multiple languages. Yvette's translator implant struggled to keep up, but she caught fragments. Anomaly detected. Sector designation Earth. Immediate review required. Then the feed cut to static. Sydney. The security officer who'd been standing silently by the main entrance suddenly lurched forward. He was a six-limbed creature with too many eyes, and every single one of them was now wide with panic. Counselor Grenar. Emergency protocol activated. We have a code vermilion situation. Impossible, Grenar said, but he was already moving toward the security station. Code vermilion requires unanimous algorithmic consensus across all monitoring networks. What could possibly... It's the humans' planet, sir. Sydney's voice cracked. The automated systems have flagged Earth for immediate intervention review. Yet felt her stomach drop. Wait, what does that mean? Intervention review? Nobody answered her. Grenda was now at the security console, his hands flying across controls that looked like musical instruments crossed with surgical tools. Other counselors crowded around their previous animosity toward Yvette, forgotten in favor of whatever crisis was unfolding on the screens. This can't be right, murmured a counselor with moica wings. These readings suggest multiple simultaneous extinction vectors. That's statistically absurd. Unless the species is actively suicidal, another counselor added darkly. We're not suicidal, Yvette protested, but doubt crept into her voice. She thought about the news she'd read that morning. The melting ice sheets, the deforestation rates, the political tensions over resources, the experimental weapons, the artificial intelligence development with insufficient safety protocols. We're just going through some things. Sydney appeared at her elbow, all of his eyes now focused on her with unsettling intensity. Professor Yve, I need you to remain calm. Do you have any data storage devices on your person? Any files pertaining to Earth's current status? Just my notebook and phone, Yvette said, holding up both. Why? What's happening? Protocol requires that we secure all information relating to flagged planets, Sydney explained, reaching for her belongings. It's a standard procedure, nothing to worry about. Just... His longest limb brushed against her notebook, and several loose papers fluttered to the floor. Yvette and Sydney both bent to retrieve them. That's when Sydney saw the page that had fallen face up. A detailed chart labeled Current Existential Risks to Human Civilization, Probability Assessment by Time Frame. Sydney's eyes widened further, which Yvette hadn't thought anatomically possible. Are these all active threats? I mean, they're just estimates, Yvette said defensively, gathering the papers. Nobody actually knows when or if these things will happen. It's all probability. And there are 49 items on this list, Sydney interrupted, his voice barely above a whisper. 49. Distinct extinction-level threats. And you organize them by month, by season. Actually, Ayed corrected. Some of these are seasonal risks, like the hurricane intensity predictions or the council greener. Sydney's shout made everyone in the chamber freeze. You need to see this. Immediately, the massive crystalline being moved with surprising speed, crossing the chamber in seconds. He took the paper from Sydney's trembling limb, and Yvette watched his glow cycle through every color she'd seen so far, plus several new ones that made her eyes hurt. This document, Grenard said slowly, each word weighted with barely controlled emotion, appears to be a human-generated assessment of near-term extinction risks facing your species. Is that accurate? It's just a research project, Yvette said. I was analyzing WASDC case scenarios for an interdisciplinary study on risk perception. Nothing official, just academic modeling. Academic modeling, Grenard repeated. He held up the paper so the entire council could see it. She has categorized extinction events by seasonal occurrence. There is a section labeled Spring Apocalypse Candidates and another titled Summer Extinction Probability Matrix. You have to understand the context, Yvette said quickly. Humans are very good at identifying potential disasters. It doesn't mean we think these things will actually happen. We just like to be prepared. It's a survival trait. Being prepared is one thing, said the moth-winged counselor, floating closer to examine the paper. But this level of casual catastrophe cataloging suggests either supreme confidence or complete denial of danger. A bit of both. Honestly, Yvette admitted. Quicks, who had been silent during this exchange, suddenly made a sound like a balloon deflating in reverse. I require immediate recalibration. My understanding of human psychology has encountered a fatal error. They are simultaneously aware of extinction threats and unconcerned about them. This violates all known parameters of survival instinct. We're very concerned, Yvette protested. We just express it differently than you do, apparently. Grena set the paper down on his podium with exaggerated care, as if it might explode. He looked at Yvette with an expression she couldn't quite read. Professor, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to answer with absolute honesty. How many extinction-level threats does Earth currently face? Yvette hesitated. Define currently. Right now. Today. This moment in your planet's timeline. Just active threats, or including things that could become threats. Active threats, Grenard said with strained patience. Yvette pulled out her phone again and scrolled through her notes. Okay, so if we're talking genuinely active, immediate extinction vectors, there's climate change. Obviously, nuclear proliferation hasn't gone away. The ongoing biodiversity collapse is accelerating. Antibiotic resistance is becoming a serious problem. There's that concerning pattern in solar activity. The astronomers are monitoring the Yellowstone supervolcano situation, the increasing asteroid near-miss frequency. Stop, Grenard commanded. Just stop. But Yvette was on a roll now, warming to her topic. Oh, And we can't forget the artificial intelligence development race, which has basically zero international oversight. The microplastic infiltration of global water systems, the topsoil depletion crisis, her phone alarm went off. The sound was absurdly cheerful, a little digital melody that seemed obscenely out of place in the tense atmosphere of the council chamber. Yvette glanced at the screen and felt her face go pale. The alarm was labeled Extinction Event H-4 Environmental Threshold. Don't forget umbrella. Every eye in the chamber focused on her phone. The silence was so complete that Yvette could hear the faint hum of the station's life support systems. Grenard's voice was very, snorts and clears throat. Quiet. Professor Yvette, why does your phone have a scheduled reminder for an extinction event? Yvette looked at the screen, then at the council, then back at her phone. She opened her mouth to explain about the research project, about the data collection protocols, about how this was just a reminder to check the latest environmental reports. But before she could say anything, a deep boom echoed through the chamber, and every display in the room simultaneously flashed red. A mechanical voice announced, "Emergency containment protocol activated. Sealed data file accessed without authorization. All personnel remain in position. Administrator Norex has been summoned." "Oh no," Sydney whispered. Nobody was supposed to access the classified files. Yet blinked. What classified files? The security officer pointed one shaking limb at the security console where Grenard still stood. On the screen, clearly visible now to everyone in the chamber, was a document marked with symbols that Yvette's translator rendered as highly restricted extinction schedule database. And there, highlighted in the search results, was Earth's entry. With a very long, very detailed list beneath it, the classified database sprawled across every screen in the chamber, its contents now impossible to hide. Yet stared at the display, showing Earth's file, her academic curiosity fighting with a growing sense of dread. The document contained rows upon rows of data, each entry marked with timestamps, probability calculations, and threat classifications. What made her blood run cold wasn't the complexity, it was the specificity. "These have dates," Yvette said, stepping closer to the console. "Actual calendar dates, not probability windows or estimated timeframes, exact days and times." Grendar's crystalline form had gone completely transparent, a sign of distress that Yvette was learning to recognize. He tried to close the file, but his hands were shaking too badly to operate the controls properly. This information is not meant for civilian viewing, especially not for representatives of the species under observation. Under observation, Yvette's voice rose. "You've been watching us, cataloging our potential disasters like we're some kind of experiment." Before Grenard could respond, Dr. Terra burst through the chamber's side entrance, slightly out of breath and carrying what appeared to be a bag of alien snacks. She'd been attending a different presentation on exobiology and had clearly run when she heard the emergency alerts. "What did I miss? Why are all the alarms going off?" "We're apparently scheduled for extinction," Yvette said flatly, pointing at the screens multiple times with appointments. Dr. Terra looked at the database, then at Yvette, then back at the database. She sat down her snack bag slowly. "I'm sorry, what?" A nervous intern named Hugh shuffled forward from where he'd been hiding behind a pillar. He was a small, furry creature with too many ears and a perpetual expression of anxiety. "I can explain," he squeaked. "It's not as bad as it looks. Well, it is as bad as it looks. But there's a reason for it. A good reason. Sort of." "Hugh, be silent," Grenard commanded. But the intern was already talking faster, words tumbling over each other in his panic. "There's a department. The Department of Cosmic Resource Management. It handles extinction events across the galaxy to maintain universal balance. Species can't just exist forever. There are quotas and cycles and distribution algorithms. You're telling me someone is planning to kill us?" Dr. Terra interrupted, her voice dangerously calm. She pulled one of the alien snacks from her bag and bit into it. The snack screamed. She spat it out immediately. What are these? Alive. Everything is alive if you look closely enough, Hugh said miserably. But yes, technically about extinction management, there's a scheduling system, controlled events, prevents overcrowding, maintains galactic equilibrium. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Earth was supposed to experience a major reset during your last ice age. But humans developed fire and clothing and somehow survived, which wasn't in the projections, and now the system is extremely backlogged with unexecuted events. Yvette felt her legs go weak. She sat down hard on the nearest chair, which squeaked in protest. Let me get this straight. We survived on a technicality. We are only alive because we were too stubborn to freeze to death. Essentially, yes, Hugh admitted the system doesn't handle anomalies well. Once a species survives a scheduled event, all subsequent events accumulate in the queue instead of being cancelled. It's a design flaw nobody wanted to fix, because it would require reformatting the entire universal database. Dr. Terra dropped her snack bag. The contents spilled across the floor, each item making distressed noises. So, what you're saying is, we're about to be hit with thousands of years' worth of backed-up extinction events all at once. Not all at once, Hugh said quickly. The system spreads them out across manageable intervals, though in Earth's case, manageable is a relative term. How relative? Yvette asked. Hugh pulled up a supplementary file. The list of pending events filled multiple screens. Climate catastrophes, geological disasters, cosmic impacts, biological plagues, technological failure. Each one tagged with an execution window and priority rating. Dr. Terra walked up to the console. Her jaw clenched. And who exactly authorized this? Who decided humanity gets to be wiped out for bureaucratic convenience? That would be Administrator Norex, said a cold, precise voice from the chamber's upper entrance. Everyone turned. Descending the stairs was a figure that resembled a very disappointed accountant who happened to have scales and forearms. Administrator Norex carried a data tablet in one hand and an expression of profound irritation on her face. She moved with the deliberate grace of someone who had dealt with far too many complaints about universal resource allocation. I see we've had an unauthorized data breach, Norex said, her eyes scanning the room before settling on Grenard. Counselor, you know the protocols. Extinction schedules are classified for excellent reasons. Now we have a civilian incident, potential panic vectors, and she noticed Yvette and Dr. Terra. Oh, wonderful. The subjects themselves have been informed. That makes this so much easier. Easier. Does Dr. Terra's voice could have cut glass. You're planning to exterminate our entire species, and you call that easier. Norex sighed. The sound of someone who had this conversation far too many times. Exterminate is such an ugly word. We prefer cosmic recycling or resource reallocation. Your species has overextended its survival parameters. Earth should have been cleared for new development millennia ago. Instead, you kept surviving through sheer statistical improbability, which has created a massive administrative headache. A headache, Yvette repeated slowly. Our existence is a headache to you. You have no idea, Norex said, pulling up charts on her tablet. Do you know how many forms I have to file every time a species dodges an extinction event? The paperwork alone is astronomical. And humans, you've dodged everything we've sent your way. Ice ages. You made clothes. Plagues. You invented medicine. Asteroid near misses. You developed detection systems. It's exhausting. So sorry our survival instinct is inconvenient for you, Dr. Terra said acidly. Norex looked at her with something approaching respect. Actually, it's quite impressive from a purely analytical standpoint. Humans are statistically the most stubborn species we've ever monitored. You survive out of spite more than strategy. She paused, which is precisely why the accumulated events need to proceed. The system can't sustain this level of deviation indefinitely. Yvette stood up, her fear transforming into something sharper. There has to be a way to appeal this, some kind of review process. You can't just decide an entire species dies because your database has formatting issues. Norix raised one eyebrow. Interesting. You want to file an appeal? Yes. Against the Department of Cosmic Resource Management? Absolutely. Administrator Norix smiled, though it wasn't a particularly warm expression. She reached into her robes and pulled out a thick document that seemed to materialize from nowhere. The pages were bound in something that looked disturbingly organic. Very well, Norix said, dropping the document onto the console with a heavy thud. This is Form 83B. Request for species continuation. Standard appeal process. You have until the end of the week to complete it. She glanced at her tablet. All 940 pages. Good luck, Professor. Yvette sat cross-legged on the floor of the station's library archive, surrounded by scattered pages of Form 83B. Dr. Terra was pacing nearby, muttering calculations under her breath, while occasionally stopping to glare at specific sections of the document. The form was written in legalese that somehow managed to be incomprehensible in every language simultaneously. Section 12 wants proof that humanity isn't a cosmic mistake, Dr. Terra said, holding up a page covered in dense text. How exactly do we prove that? What's the standard for acceptable existence? I don't think there is one, Yet replied, squinting at her own section. This whole document is designed to be impossible. Look at this. I need to provide documentation of our contributions to universal harmony. Universal harmony isn't even a measurable concept. A throat cleared behind them. Both women turned to find Leland, a gangly human exchange student with perpetually messy hair and an expression of terminal bewilderment. He'd been studying galactic law at the station for the past semester and had approximately zero confidence in his abilities. I heard you needed legal help, Leland said hesitantly. I'm probably not the right person, but I'm the only human here who's taken any courses in interstellar legislation. So can you understand this? Iad thrust a handful of pages at him. Leland scanned them, his frown deepening with each line. Oh no. Oh, this is bad. This is really bad. He looked up. Genuine distress in his eyes. I specialized in parking violations and minor trade disputes. This is an extinction appeal. The legal complexity is exponentially higher than anything I've studied. So, we're doomed, Dr. Terra said, flatly. I didn't say that, Leland protested weakly. I just said I'm massively underqualified. There's a difference. He sat down and began sorting through pages, organizing them into piles with a system only he understood. Okay, let's think about this strategically. What's the actual goal here? Not dying, Yvette suggested. More specifically, convincing the Council that humanity deserves to continue existing, Leland said, which means we need to frame Earth's survival pattern as valuable rather than anomalous. He pulled out a section marked with ominous red symbols. Here's the problem. Multiple alien species have filed formal complaints against humanity. The Zorbach Collective submitted a grievance about our broadcast transmissions, contaminating their cultural observation frequencies. Apparently, our reality television shows violated their sensory decency standards. Dr. Terra stopped pacing. They're trying to kill us because they don't like our TV shows. It's listed as evidence of civilizational degradation, Leland explained. Along with our tendency to argue in comment sections, our creation of devices specifically designed to waste time, and our inexplicable habit of asking questions we could easily answer ourselves using available technology. That's ridiculous, Yvette protested. Maybe, Leland said, but it's formally documented ridiculous, which means we have to address it in the appeal. He found another section and winced. There's worse. Section 89 requires a live demonstration of species worthiness in front of the entire council. We have to physically prove humans deserve to exist. How? Dr. Terra demanded. It doesn't specify, Leland admitted, which means they can judge us on literally anything. It's deliberately vague to give the Council maximum discretionary power. Iet felt something cold settle in her chest. This wasn't just bureaucratic obstruction. It was a system designed to ensure failure. The form was impossible by design. The complaints were subjective, and the final test had no clear criteria. Humanity was being set up to lose. Then we changed the game, Yvette said suddenly. Both Leland and Dr. Terra looked at her. We can't win by their rules because their rules are rigged. So we use what humans do best. We improvise. We adapt. We survive in ways nobody expects. That's a terrible legal strategy, Leland said. Do you have a better one? He thought for a moment, then shook his head. Actually, no. Most successful legal precedents in galactic court came from species who ignored conventional approaches and did something completely unpredictable. He started shuffling through his notes. There was a case where a species won continuation rights by demonstrating their unique cultural practice of synchronized bioluminescent dancing. Another one by proving their mathematics was based on a prime number system nobody else had discovered. So, we need to show them something uniquely human, Dr. Terrara said slowly. Something that proves we're valuable specifically because we're different. But what? Yvette asked. What do humans have that no other species has? They sat in silence, the weight of the question pressing down on them outside the library window. The station hummed with activity. Alien species from across the galaxy going about their lives, completely unaware that humanity's continued existence hung in the balance. Leland was the first to speak. Spite, both women turned to stare at him. I'm serious, he continued, gaining confidence. Think about it. Every extinction event we've survived. We survived because we were too stubborn to give up. We don't have the strongest biology. We're not the smartest species. We don't have natural armor or telepathy or any special advantages. But we absolutely refuse to quit, even when quitting would be the logical choice. Terra's eyes lit up. He's right. We survive out of pure stubbornness. We do things specifically because someone said we couldn't. She pulled out her tablet and started pulling up examples. We eat food that actively hurts us because we enjoy the challenge. We climb mountains just to prove we can. We send probes beyond our solar system, knowing we'll never see them again just to say we did it. That's not logical, Yvette said. Exactly, Leland replied. It's completely irrational, and maybe that's what makes us worth keeping around. The galaxy is full of logical species following predictable patterns. We're the chaos variable, the unpredictable element that does things nobody sees coming. Yvette looked at the mountain of paperwork, then at her companions, then back at the form. A plan was forming in her mind. Audacious, probably doomed, but undeniably human in its refusal to accept the impossible. All right, she said. Let's show them exactly how stubborn humans can be. The presentation chamber felt different when Yvette entered for the second time. The tiers of seats were packed now, filled with delegates from species she couldn't name, all gathered to witness humanity's defense. Word had spread across the station about the appeal, and apparently watching a species argue for its survival made for compelling entertainment. The murmur of hundreds of conversations in dozens of languages created a sound like distant thunder. Grinar sat in his elevated position, his crystalline form catching the overhead lights and scattering them across the room in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Administrator Norex occupied a position to his right, her forearms folded in an expression of profound skepticism. The rest of the council filled their assigned seats, and Yvette noticed that several of them were making what appeared to be wagers with each other. Professor Yvette Grinder announced, his voice cutting through the noise and reducing the chamber to silence. You have requested formal appeal of the extinction schedule assigned to your species. The Council has reviewed your submitted documentation and finds it, he paused, consulting a data tablet, incomplete, unorthodox, and borderline incomprehensible. That's fair, Yvette said, stepping up to the presentation platform with Dr. Tara and Leland flanking her. We had limited time and even more limited understanding of your legal system, but we did complete the required sections to the best of our ability. Section 12 asked for proof that humanity is not a cosmic mistake, Norex interjected coldly. You submitted a recipe for bread and a photograph of a dog wearing a hat. The bread represents our ability to transform basic resources into something greater than their component parts. Iet explained calmly. The dog picture represents our capacity to form emotional bonds with other species and find joy in absurd circumstances. Both seemed relevant to the question of cosmic value. A ripple of confused muttering spread through the audience. Several counselors were consulting their own copies of the appeal, apparently trying to determine if this was brilliant or insane. Dr. Tara stepped forward. If I may address the Council, we'd like to move directly to the live demonstration requirement. We understand that our written appeal is unconventional, but we believe our practical presentation will clarify humanity's unique contribution to the galaxy. Grenna exchanged glances with Norex, who shrugged with all four shoulders. Very well. You may proceed with your demonstration. Be aware that the Council reserves the right to terminate this presentation if it becomes frivolous or wastes our time. Understood, Yvette said. She pulled out a portable projector and activated it, filling the air above the platform with images. We're going to tell you a story about extinction events, but not the ones you've scheduled for us, the ones we've already survived. The first image showed ice sheets covering vast landscapes. This was Earth during our last major ice age. Temperatures dropped, food became scarce, most species in our evolutionary line died out. Humans survived by doing something illogical. We walked into the coldest environments on purpose, following migrating prey animals into conditions that should have killed us. The image shifted to show cave paintings of hunters surrounding massive woolly creatures. We had no natural advantages, no fur, no claws, no size. What we had was spite and creativity. We made clothing from animal skins. We created weapons from stones and sticks. We built fires to keep warm. And we survived specifically because we refused to accept that we couldn't. Leland advanced to the next image. Ancient human settlements surrounded by evidence of volcanic disasters. The Toba supervolcanic eruption should have finished us. It nearly did. The human population crashed to levels that should have guaranteed extinction, but a small group survived in East Africa and they rebuilt. Not because it was smart or logical, but because giving up wasn't in our nature. This is all very dramatic, Norex said. But it doesn't address why we should allow your species to continue consuming resources and occupying space that could be allocated to less problematic civilizations. Because with a chaos variable, Dr. Tara said bluntly, you've built a galaxy based on predictable patterns, scheduled events, and logical resource management. That's efficient, but it's also stagnant. Evolution doesn't happen in stable environments. It happens under pressure when species are forced to adapt or die. She pulled up new images showing human technological development. We went from stone tools to space travel in the blink of an evolutionary eye. We developed agriculture, writing, mathematics, medicine, and physics at a pace that shouldn't be possible for a species with our limited lifespans. And we did it while constantly fighting against our own tendency towards self-destruction. That's supposed to be a selling point, asked a counselor who resembled a sentient cloud of geometric shapes. You admit you're self-destructive. We're self-aware about our self-destructiveness, Yvette corrected. Which is different. We know we're our own worst enemy. We know we make terrible decisions. We know we're prone to tribalism, short-term thinking, and catastrophically bad judgment. And despite all of that, we keep trying to be better. Leland stepped forward nervously. There's a legal precedent for this. Actually, Galactic Statute 2008-47J subsection gamma. Any species that demonstrates continuous adaptive capacity under sustained existential pressure qualifies for extended survival consideration. Humans have been under sustained existential pressure for our entire evolutionary history, and we've adapted every single time. Subsection gamma was written for species facing external threats. Grinder said, not species creating their own threats through negligence and poor planning. Does the statute specify that distinction? Leland asked. There was a long pause while Greener consulted his own legal database. His crystalline form flickered through several colors before settling on a frustrated amber. It does not explicitly specify the origin of the threats. Then we qualify, Leland said, his confidence growing. Humanity has demonstrated continuous adaptive capacity. The fact that we are adapting to problems we created ourselves doesn't negate that adaptation. If anything, it proves we're capable of recognizing and addressing our own mistakes eventually. Dr. Tara added, we address them eventually, usually right before they kill us, but still. Administrator Norek stood up, her expression darker than before. This is a waste of the Council's time. You're arguing technicalities while ignoring the fundamental issue. Your species is scheduled for resource reallocation because you failed to die when you were supposed to. The system has accumulated too many pending events. They must be executed to restore balance. Then change the system, Yvette said simply. The chamber went silent. Even the ambient noise of the station seemed to fade, as every being present processed what she just suggested. I beg your pardon, Norek said dangerously. Your system is broken, Yvette continued, her voice carrying across the chamber. You've built an entire bureaucracy around managing species extinctions, but your fundamental assumption is flawed. You treat extinction as a resource management tool instead of what it actually is, a failure of adaptation. Species don't die because the universe needs their resources. Species die because they can't adapt to changing conditions. She gestured at the images still floating above the platform. Humans adapt. We adapt to ice ages and plagues and volcanoes and our own stupidity. We're not perfect at it. We're actually pretty terrible at it most of the time, but we keep trying and we keep surviving. And maybe that's more valuable than whatever resources you think Earth represents. Bold words from a species facing extinction, Grenard observed. We've always been facing extinction. Dr. Tara said, that's our natural state. The difference is that we got used to it. We learned to laugh at disasters and make jokes about our own doom because the alternative was constant terror. You asked how many extinction events Earth has faced. The answer is all of them. Every possible disaster. We've either survived, or we're currently surviving, or we're about to survive. That's what humans do. Leland pulled up a final document on the projector. There's one more thing. While researching the appeal, I found something interesting in the Galactic Archives. An ancient filing from approximately 12,000 Earth years ago. It's technically a formal appeal of extinction submitted by a human named Grok, who apparently carved his petition onto a sacred stone while sheltering from the Ice Age. The audience erupted into confused chatter. Several counselors were frantically accessing their own archive copies trying to verify this information. That can't be valid, Norix protested. The filing system didn't exist 12,000 years ago. The stone predates your formal system, Leland agreed. But Galactic Statute 45,051 retroactively recognizes all extinction appeals carved into sacred stones, provided they meet specific criteria regarding depth of carving, clarity of intent, and cosmic significance of location. Grok's stone meets all those criteria. This is absurd, Norak said, but her voice lacked its earlier certainty. It gets better, Leland continued, warming to his argument. According to Statute 4051, subsection theta, Any species that successfully appeals an extinction event receives automatic immunity from scheduled extinctions for the next 500 galactic cycles. That immunity is transferable across evolutionary descendants. Grenard was scrolling through his database so quickly, his hands blurred. The statute exists. The stone carving has been authenticated. The timeline matches. He looked up, his glow shifting to something Yvette had never seen before. Respect tinged with disbelief. Humanity filed an extinction appeal 12,000 years ago. And according to our own laws, you've been protected this entire time. So all those scheduled events, Dr. Terra began. Shouldn't have been scheduled, Grenda finished. The system flagged Earth as overdue for reallocation, but it failed to cross-reference the ancient appeal filing. The protection period hasn't expired yet. Administrator Norex looked like she'd swallowed something toxic. This is a bureaucratic nightmare. The entire extinction schedule will need to be audited. The Department of Cosmic Resource Management will be investigating this failure for decades. So, we're not going to be exterminated? Yvette asked carefully. You were never supposed to be exterminated in the first place, Grenda admitted. Your species has been operating under legal protection for 12 millennia, and nobody noticed because the filing predated digital record-keeping. He paused. This is simultaneously the worst and most impressive outcome I've witnessed in my entire tenure as counselor. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some counselors were celebrating the discovery of such an ancient legal precedent. Others were panicking about the implications for their own scheduled extinctions. A few were already filing complaints about the inefficiency of the archival system. Quix, the translator, materialized beside Yve and her companions. His gelatinous form was vibrating with what might have been amusement. You magnificent, infuriating creatures. You survived on a technicality from the Stone Age. That's the most human thing I've ever heard. We do try, Yet said modestly. Question, Dr. Terra said, raising her hand. Does this mean we're exempt from all extinction events, or just the scheduled ones? Grenard consulted his database again. The protection specifically covers administratively scheduled resource reallocation events. You're still vulnerable to natural disasters, cosmic accidents, and self-inflicted catastrophes. So basically our normal existence, Yvette said. Essentially, yes. Administrator Norex descended from her platform, approaching the humans with an expression of grudging respect. For the record, this is the worst loophole in the history of galactic bureaucracy. Your ancestor carved a complaint into a rock during an ice age, and somehow that translates into 12,000 years of extinction immunity. It's technically legal, but it's cosmically irritating. We excel at being cosmically irritating, Dr. Terra said cheerfully. I've noticed, Norex replied. The department will be filing a formal recommendation to close this loophole, so future species can't exploit it. But the protection stands for humanity. Congratulations on your continued survival, however improbable it may be. Iette felt something release in her chest tension she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. They'd done it. Through a combination of spite, research, and the world's oldest bureaucratic oversight, humanity had won the right to keep existing. Leland was shaking slightly, the adrenaline of the presentation finally catching up with him. I can't believe that worked. I found that stone carving in a footnote in an appendix that nobody had accessed in centuries. I thought it was just interesting historical trivia. Sometimes trivia saves the world, Yvette said. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Yvette's phone buzzed with a calendar notification. She glanced at the screen and couldn't help but laugh. The reminder read, Friday extinction event number 5, self-inflicted. Update, postponed indefinitely. Maybe bring snacks anyway. She showed it to Dr. Terra, who grinned. Should we tell them we still schedule extinction events as calendar reminders? Absolutely not, Yvette said. Let them think we've learned our lesson. Grenard approached them as officials began clearing the chamber. Professor Yvette, before you return to Earth, I have a question. Those extinction event reminders on your phone, are those genuinely for tracking potential disasters? Or are you just that? Committed to the joke. Yet considered her answer carefully. Honestly, both. We track disasters because we need to know what we're up against. We joke about them because otherwise we'd never stop panicking. It's a coping mechanism wrapped in dark humor, wrapped in actual risk assessment. That's deeply concerning from a psychological standpoint, Grenard observed. Welcome to humanity, Dr. Terra said. As the humans left the council chamber, quells floated alongside them. I updated your translation files, added context markers for human hyperbole, sarcasm, and gallows humor. It should prevent future incidents where your casual language triggers diplomatic crisis. Much appreciated, Yvette said. Though I suspect we'll find new ways to accidentally offend people. Undoubtedly, Qualix agreed. But perhaps that's part of your charm. The galaxy is full of species who follow rules and respect protocols. You're the ones who carve complaints into rocks during ice ages and somehow turn it into legal precedent. It's refreshing in a terrifying sort of way. Back on Earth several days later, Yvette stood in her university office updating her lecture notes. The section on extinction events had gained several new footnotes, including one that read, Note to self when discussing mass extinctions. Remember to clarify, whether referring to historical events or scheduled administrative reallocation attempts prevented by Stone Age legal filing. Dr. Terra had started a podcast called Surviving the Apocalypse Monthly, which had immediately become popular among both human and alien audiences, who appreciated humanity's unique approach to existential dread. Leland had changed his academic focus from parking violations to ancient galactic legal precedents, and was writing his thesis on the gross stone carving, which had become the most studied piece of prehistoric human art in the galaxy. And in the galactic archives, deep in the Department of Cosmic Resource Management, a very tired intern named Hugh was updating Earth's file with a new designation that would remain in place for the next several thousand years. Do not schedule extinctions. Species protected by prehistoric loophole. Also, humans will argue extensively. The note included a secondary warning added by Administrator Norex herself. Humanity survives primarily through spite, technicalities, and a concerning inability to recognize when they should give up. Recommend avoiding future administrative contact unless absolutely necessary. They turn every interaction into an incident. Yvette's phone buzzed with a message from the Galactic Council. It was from Greener, and it contained a single line. Your species remains the most statistically improbable survival story in recorded history. Please try not to cause any more cosmic incidents. Respectfully, Counselor Grinder, she typed back. No promises, but we'll do our best probably. Maybe. His response came immediately. That's what I was afraid of. Yvette smiled, closed her laptop, and looked out her office window at the campus beyond. Students were walking between classes, completely unaware that their species had nearly been administratively deleted from existence. Life continued, as it always did for humans. Chaotic, improbable, and stubbornly, defiantly alive. Somewhere in the cosmos, extinction events continued their natural course. Stars died. Planets cooled. Species rose and fell, according to the universe's indifferent laws. But humanity, through a combination of dumb luck, bureaucratic oversight, and their ancestors' decision to complain about the Ice Age by carving his grievances into a rock, had secured the right to keep stumbling forward through disasters of their own making. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't efficient. It certainly wasn't what the Department of Cosmic Resource Management had planned, but it was very, very human. And for now, that was enough. Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.